Hello people, and welcome back to another video on the first Sengoku Basara game. Previously, we covered an in-depth retrospective of Sengoku Basara and how the first game was developed. In the retrospective video, we did cover the gameplay aspect of Sengoku Basara, but only on a surface level. As I mentioned before that Sengoku Basara, as we all know, is Capcom's take on a Musou hack-and-slash game. To distinguish itself from Koei's Dynasty and Samurai Warriors, Capcom's Sengoku Basara focuses more on the over-the-top character element. I mean, look at this. We got an AT-AT Walker from Star Wars in feudal Japan. For those of you who might not know, the name Sengoku Basara came from the words Sengoku and Basara. The word Sengoku came from Sengoku Jidai, which means Warring States period, considering the game is an adaptation of the Warring States period of Japan. The word Basara in Japanese means extravagant in dress and behavior. Hence, in literal terms, Sengoku Basara means the Warring States period in the extravagant or outlandish way. In this video, we are going to take a deeper look on the gameplay of the first Sengoku Basara game. The combat and the presentation are going to be the main discussion of this video. Keep in mind that this video only covers the first Sengoku Basara game. Other Sengoku Basara games will be discussed in later videos to point out how the series evolved. I'm also going to use Samurai Warriors more as a comparison than Dynasty Warriors, considering the former has the same setting as Sengoku Basara. This is especially when I talk about the combat. So, without further ado, let's take a deeper look in the combat aspect of Sengoku Basara. For those of you who are familiar with Musou games in general, then I'm sure you all know how these games work. In most Koei Musou games, you have three main attack commands: normal attacks, charge attacks, and Musou attacks. In games like Samurai Warriors, you can either do a chain of normal attacks or normal attacks that ends with a charge attack. In the first Sengoku Basara game, charge attacks are replaced with what the game called as special attacks. Special attacks are equipped in the preparation menu before you start any battle. You can only pick two out of multiple special attacks. The triangle button is to perform the special attack, while the L1 button is to switch between the two special attacks you have equipped. As you can see, the words above the health bar indicate what special attack you are currently using. When you start a character at level 1, you only have two special attacks. You will unlock more special attacks as your character's level progresses. When it comes to normal attacks, every character has 8 strings of normal attacks. The number of normal attack strings stay the same as you progress your character to maximum level. Just like in Samurai Warriors, Sengoku Basara allows you to chain normal attacks with special attacks. In Samurai Warriors, however, charge attacks differ depends on when you end the normal attack chains. For example, square triangle is a launch attack, square square triangle is a stun attack, square 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 triangle is an all-rounder attack. Every character in the first Samurai Warriors game has the same combat patterns. This is also a staple in the Dynasty Warrior series, especially the PlayStation 2 games. In Sengoku Basara, special attacks do not alter with the normal attack chains. You will always perform the same special attacks that you choose, regardless if you chain them with normal attacks. Another major difference in Sengoku Basara is that characters can perform air combo. In Samurai Warriors, the aerial attack is either one normal attack swing or a charge ground pound. In Sengoku Basara, you can actually do a string of normal attacks in the air. You can also chain aerial normal attacks with a strong ground pound. It's basically the normal charge attack strings from Samurai Warriors, but in the air. Some special attacks are pop-up attacks that you can chain into an air combo. Special attacks in Sengoku Basara can also act as powered up stances. To further elaborate this, I'm going to use Date Masamune as an example. One of his special attacks is called War Dance. Performing this special attack, Masamune enters the 6 sword stance. In this stance, Masamune will perform a completely different normal attack than his default stance. The special attacks in Sengoku Basara were designed to be flashy and over the top. As I mentioned in the Sengoku Basara retrospective video, This was Capcom's attempt to avoid fiction cannibalization from Koei's Samurai Warriors. Now, just like in Samurai Warriors, Sengoku Basara has a Muso attack. In Koei games, Muso attacks are the big super attacks that you do by pressing the circle button. In the first Samurai Warriors game, as well as Dynasty Warriors 2-5, Muso attacks are strings of strong repeated attacks. In other words, they have patterns. In Sengoku Basara, the super attacks are not called Muso attacks, they are called the Basara attacks. The biggest difference between Basara and Muso attacks is the presentation. The Basara attacks are more flashy compared to the somewhat grounded pattern Muso attacks.
Slow. I shall seal your fate.
A splendid
I'm going to give a personal opinion here. Although I appreciate both games from Koei and Capcom, I will give Capcom props on how they approached the combat in the first Sengoku Basara game. The PlayStation 2 Koei Muso games somewhat made characters feel samey, considering all of them shared a similar pattern of attacks. With the approach of style and flash in Sengoku Basara, Capcom actually gave more individuality to the characters. The first Sengoku Basara combat is somewhat simplistic. However, the more flashy and stylish approach of Capcom not only enabled them to distinguish themselves from Koei's Samurai Warriors, but actually gave more individuality to their characters. As the series progressed, Sengoku Basara became one of the most in-depth combat in a Muso-like game. Just for your information, I have covered the in-depth combat of Sengoku Basara for Sumeragi. When you are done with this video, I highly suggest you watch this video showcasing the in-depth combat of Sengoku Basara for Sumeragi. Link to the video is in the description below. Now that we are done talking about the combat, let's discuss the main story campaign of the first Sengoku Basara game. The main campaign in Sengoku Basara is called Conquest Mode. The objective of Conquest Mode is to conquer all of Japan using the character that represents a faction. This is very similar to that of Empire Mode in the Dynasty Warriors Empire series. The only difference is that Sengoku Basara's Conquest Mode has a more arcade-style approach. In Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires, for example, you have to invade every single territory owned by a specific faction to finally defeat that respective faction. Either that, or you can just simply defeat the commander of the faction and you get the entire territory owned by that faction. In Sengoku Basara, if a faction controls a large number of territories, you just need to fight them once and gain control of every single territory they owned. Speaking of arcade style, the map layouts in Sengoku Basara are linear compared to the large maps of Koei Muso games. As I said previously, considering Muso games are like a spiritual successor to arcade beat-em-ups, this move was done by Capcom to make the game easy to access, so to speak. This was maybe also another way of Capcom to distinguish themselves with Koei Muso games. Worth mentioning as well that Capcom was one of the most prominent developers for arcade beat-em-up games in the 90s. Capcom, alongside Konami, were like the king of beat-em-up games in the 90s, so having a more arcade-style approach to Sengoku Basara was an unsurprising move from Capcom in my opinion. The game also has a weapon system like Dynasty and Samurai Warriors, in which you can unlock stronger weapons as the game progresses. Sengoku Basara offers 6 weapons per character. This game doesn't have unlockable rare weapons like in Dynasty and Samurai Warriors. Instead, the 5th and 6th weapons are RNG that are most likely dropped in the hardest difficulty. 2 out of 6 weapons for each character are elemental weapons. In this case, they are usually the 3rd and the 5th weapons. Each character is assigned to specific elements. For example, Masamune has lightning, Yukimura has fire, and Kenshin has ice, to name a few. The 6th weapons in this game are the strongest weapons. The 6 weapons also act as joke weapons in the game. For example, Uesugi Kenshin's 6th weapon is a flower bouquet. What's fascinating is that Sengoku Basara introduced the idea of joke weapons long before Dynasty or Samurai Warriors. Koei started to implement joke weapons in Dynasty Warriors 7 around 6 years after the release of Sengoku Basara. There is one major downside to this game. The first Sengoku Basara game does not have a co-op mode. You can only play one player throughout the entire game. I get that this is the first game, but I believe Capcom should have had co-op in this game, considering Koei's Samurai Warriors has co-op. In conclusion, the main campaign of Sengoku Basara follows a more arcade-style approach. The stages are designed more linear, not only to fit Kobayashi's vision of making an easy-to-get-into game, but to distinguish itself with Koei Muso games. All of this was done to avoid fiction cannibalization against the competitor. So that's it for the gameplay discussion in the first Sengoku Basara game. I plan to cover all of the main Sengoku Basara games in this channel, and this acts as the last video covering the first Sengoku Basara game. There are probably more that I can talk about the first Sengoku Basara game, but I do think I have covered enough in terms of the main aspects of the game. I do want to take this time as well to appreciate every single one of you who watched and subscribed to this channel. We have reached 1,000 subscribers for this channel at the start of 2024. It took us 3.5 years to get this, and I have all of you to thank for making this possible. I'm looking forward to make more interesting content in this channel, especially Sengoku Basara content. So, what are your thoughts about the gameplay of the first Sengoku Basara game? Let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, this is me, Profar. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you dislike it, give me a thumbs down. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Profar Mokori Hunter X Discord server. I'll see you guys in the next video.